up, guys? Welcome to another edition of Across the Pitch. Myself, Dave Miller, and Mike Barrera just across from me. How you doing, Mike?
Good. As you guys know, I've been dealing with some sickness recently, so it's happy to kind of get my head straight. I took a little nap after work, and I'm feeling better to be on air today. So I know last week Jose did a great job covering me, so I'm trying to get through today, and it's day 7 for me with this annoying COVID issue that my entire family unfortunately has had to face. So we're getting through it. But Dave, it's been nice to have myself back with you tonight.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, of course. I mean, it's been obviously for you. You've perhaps had a more relaxed week, obviously needed with battling COVID and things like that. But I mean, for the Union, it's been very much the opposite, and they're rounding off this busy week, busy 7-day period tomorrow at home to the Red Bulls. But obviously, they drew 2-2 in LA, which is a very good result, and then they obviously went to Orlando and were knocked out of the Open Cup, losing 2-1. I know there were some debates on social media, on Twitter, people like complaining, saying that the Open Cup game was bigger than the LAFC game and things such as that. So it's we'll discuss that in a little bit. But I mean, obviously, for you, I mean, I don't know how much of the LAFC game you caught last week because you're obviously very much under the weather, not feeling very well. Did you manage to catch the full game, or?
Surprisingly, I was able to battle through it. I caught the game. It was a very fun game to watch overall. It's funny because you see, well, first and foremost, Mikel Ua scores in Nashville. Right, we're all very excited to see that. Unfortunately, before LAFC, we were all expecting to see him back again, but according to Jim, he kind of re-aggravated his thigh, some soreness, so he didn't make the trip out. So that was one of the bummers we saw kind of going into that match. Like, oh crap, we're not going to have Mikael kind of warming up at the right time to score. So unfortunately, we had Burke up top with Carranza, as I'm sure most of the Union faithful who watched the game will admit, he did not play that great, Burke, but we scored right away thanks to Daniel Gazdag and his beautiful little kind of tapper right there in the front of the net, sparked by Carranza's excellent run down the middle of the pitch. It was really just a great sequence overall. But yeah, I was able to watch it, and I thought overall it was what you expect from the top team in the West and the top team in the East.
I think again, obviously the Union did a good job in terms of somewhat containing LAFC to an extent. I know, although they had like 22 shots, it wasn't as if, the Andre Blake was extremely tested throughout. They had a fair few chances, but especially in that first half, the Union was they were very much comfortable. Again, it was a very typical Union game against a better team where, they were happy to sit off, allow the opposition to have the ball around them. And as Jim has specified throughout the start of the season, they're a team that likes to hit you on the counter-attack. They like to win the ball off you and break. And that was the perfect thing for the first goal. They got the ball and gave the ball, and Carranza's managed to drive them up the pitch before Kai Wagner's curling cross towards the back post, towards the back post. It just sort of evaded everyone, and Gazdag was there, fortunately, to just tap it in or poke it in at the back post and put the Union in front. I think it was very much a good goal to exemplify the Jim Curtin philosophy, or the Union philosophy in terms of quick counter-attacks and having players like Julian Carranza that the Union didn't have last year. Although they had players like Montero who are good technically with the ball, they aren't the sort of players that can drive you up the field. Carranza has shown that in the early stages since he's joined. Hopefully we might be able to see that from Mikel. But again, it was just a very nice all-round goal. And, and then after half-time, the Union... Again, I think obviously LAFC were going to come out stronger of the two teams, and they are within 10 minutes of the second half starting, they ended up, equalising through Opoku. I believe it was it was a difficult one for Blake, I think, because it was one of those ones where obviously the power of the strike is so fierce, like you're going to struggle to keep it out anyway. Those are the sort of shots that if he does get a hand on it, it's probably been parried into the back of the net anyway. Probably. Blake obviously had to make a guess of, if I go early here and he shoots across my goal, I might end up being able to put it away. He went a bit earlier. He ended up smashing into the near post. For you, was it I think again we saw a bit of a breakdown defensively from the Union, because they were somewhat carved open quite easily, in a sense where Cifuentes had was able literally just to play the one touch pass straight through into Opoku, and Opoku was in so much space he could have literally he had so much time to decide what he was going to do. I think it was a bit of a defensive breakdown as well.
Yeah, I mean, you kind of expected this LAFC's team to score. I mean, you didn't expect them to
Yeah,
be, shut out the entire time. So it was really just a matter of when. We saw early on in the first half they were knocking on the door almost right away, which you expect. They're going to come out hot, trying to put the Union on the back end and trying to force a mistake early on. The Union did well enough to hold it together and get that early lead, but it. I wasn't exactly surprised necessarily speaking. I was kind of expecting to be at least 1-1, 2-2. So when they scored, I was like, all right, this is LAFC. You're gonna get beat around a few times. And for Blake, I don't think he really had much. As you said, I don't think he had much of an option. He kind of was damned if he did, damned if he didn't. So it was a tough one for Blake, and you just kind of have to respond the way they did there with Carranza not that long after.
yeah, exactly. I mean, again, obviously, it was a frustrating goal to concede. I think not in terms of the actual goal itself, but the easiness of how it came
Yeah.
about. The sort of the simple like cut through the Union defence. We knew that they were going to probably concede because LAFC are no mugs, they're a very strong side. But again, then the Union went down the other end and they had a positive period. And Carranza scored a fantastic goal to give them, regain the lead. Gazdag became provider this time as he found him in sort of played a nice little ball through to Carranza, who he could have probably let the ball run across him, and he could have been in that way. But instead, he decided to take a touch with his right foot to bring it on his left foot. And bear in mind, he's stood flat-footed. He's managed to somehow get enough loft and curling on the ball to curl it sort of around the goalkeeper and the post and into sort of the side netting. I mean, a fantastic goal. I mean, that's probably I think both of us probably the last thing we expected to see when that ball left his foot.
I mean, yeah, for one, he was also falling down when he was
Yeah,
kicking it. It was just when you saw it on the TV, the angle made it look like it was going to go out, and it
yeah,
just miraculously caught enough spin to get itself behind the keeper. I thought it was. I mean, that was one of the top 10 goals that I can remember in the past, few seasons. I mean, that was a beautiful goal from Carranza. And if you
yeah.
think of what he's doing, so I had a conversation with, I think, I forget who, it might have been Billy or somebody online. We're talking about the strikers for the Union, and you have Ua, who's, yeah, I love him, but my God, he's not healthy right now. He can't stay on the field. You have Santos,
Yeah.
who's, basically sporadic with his finishing and or his health.
Availability, yeah.
Availability, yeah. It's if he's on, he's not scoring really. If he's off, he's because he's hurt again. For Burke, we saw what Burke missed some chances. He's
Yeah.
turning the ball over. He's not good on the ball. He's receiving it and he's just kind of getting not having a good shot on net or not using the first touch properly, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And then you have Carranza, who's essentially carrying this forward group, and he's been incredible, Dave. I mean, seriously, he's been I think was please correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't Jim compare him to Castellanos earlier in the season, right at a press conference or
um,
something?
I
He
think
compared
he
him.
mentioned. I don't want to
Yeah,
like misquote him. I think he may have mentioned him in sort of the same conversation.
right. So he compared him to somebody lofty in the league, and you think, okay, a guy who hasn't had much experience in Miami. He obviously came here with some issues with them in terms of just production, right, and injury,
Yeah,
of course. He comes here and he's been phenomenal. He's been gritty. He's been good on the ball. He's been pressing well. He's done everything you could have possibly asked him to do. And
yeah.
I don't know where this team would be without Carranza. I really don't. And his goal on Saturday night was just a work of art.
No, I think again he's really him and Gazdag especially really taken the load upon themselves. I mean,
Yeah.
Gazdag looks a different player in comparison to the start of last season, which is obviously great to see. We're finally seeing the Gazdag that Ernest and Jim both sort of were expecting to sign when they did sign.
Hmm.
Again, he's taken it upon himself to really carry the load a bit, and he's coming up with the goals and assists, the same as Julian Carranza. And again, it's sort of amazing to see. I don't know what the release clause is or whatever the buy clause is for Carranza at the end of the season, but I think there was no chance in hell the Union don't take up that offer or don't pass up on that offer at the end of the season if they are able to go in and actually buy him. Um, again, I think it's just it's it's a frustrating thing to sort of see because again, like We saw
Hmm.
Burke actually had a good start to the season, scoring a couple of goals, but he's really veered
Yeah.
off since then. Again, I think you could probably fit him into that like sporadic sort of sense of like Santos, where Santos is just more pace and you don't really know what he's going to do, whereas Burke's more of a bit of a bowling ball, really. You want him to try and wrap up the defenders, try and win the ball in the air, and throw himself at everything to try and win headers or whatever. So I think, yeah, I don't think it was Burke's greatest game. I think he did cause LAFC issues in the air. I think he some of them were handballs, obviously, but again, like they were struggling to sort of deal with him in the air in terms of like putting crosses into the box because he did win his fair share of headers. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, from a team perspective, it's great to see that they've actually got a player or two that they can actually rely upon to carry the burden of scoring goals.
Well, can I mention two things about Burke and Santos that you bring them up? So we're talking about finishing and having that killer mentality with this team, right? Which at
Yeah,
times we saw this at Montreal at home. It was 1-1, and it was just like, when are they going to put this game away? Make it 2-1, go away. You're at home. You should win this game against Montreal. They never did. Um,
yeah,
we saw at the start of the second half, I believe it was Burke who went up and won a header in the box, and he had a pretty clear shot at goal, and he missed the net. And that's one where like, if he just put it in the back of the net, that would have been a 2-0 lead. LAFC score shortly afterwards.
yeah,
Then you have the 2-1 lead with Carranza's goal. And then you have this moment where Sergio Santos has the ball and he's charging on the left side of the pitch. And all he has, I think, was Carranza or was Gazdag in the box,
yeah,
basically by himself. He didn't cross it in. And that would have been the 3-1 the difference right there. Of
yeah.
course, sure enough, LAFC comes back and they kind of make you eat your
That's 10
mistake.
minutes.
Yeah,
Obviously, I mean, they score from a corner. I know everyone will be annoyed from that. They win the initial header. I think Cifuentes wins the initial header. Blake does well to keep it out, but then Escobar's there to the rebound first with sort of no one really around him. It gets to it before Blake or Andre can really reset himself, to get focus. So again, he's sort of having to react by like having to jump at the ball as he's on the ground. So it's always going to be a difficult job to make the save.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, it was a frustrating goal to concede. But I think there was some controversy. I mean, a couple of minutes beforehand, especially, with the, I believe it was Palacios who kicked out.
Oh my god.
I think Gastaki kicked out. He kicked out
He kicked
someone.
he kicked Bedoya.
Kicked out Bedoya and Jim
Hmm.
said in his press conference this week. We'll get onto that in a little bit. That
Hmm.
the MLS refereeing panel or whatever they're called, the decision makers, essentially turned around to Jim and said, "Yeah, we got that one wrong. He should have been sent off." So again, that's 2 games now this year that the Union have failed or have dropped points from winning positions where they were in the lead and something that should have turned into a red card or a foul or an incident that should have been a red card wasn't a red card,
Right.
and they've ended up not dropping points in both. They've dropped 5 points out of those 2 games. So
Yep.
again, Jim should have a reason to feel aggrieved with the way that VAR and the refereeing has played out in the MLS so far this year. I mean, again, they've had their fair share of, like I said, at the start of the season, and it sort of goes and swings and roundabouts. When you have VAR there and you have those, I mean, again, if it's just a referee that VAR, you can sort of understand it if it goes under the radar. But when it's right in front of you and you've got video technology with all these different angles to show you, and the VAR decides that, nah, it's okay, won't look at it. But then on reflection, they say, actually, it was a fuck up. Then what's the point of having VAR if you're not going to use it?
I
I saw someone say, like, it's reserved for the NA and New York teams.
I don't understand. So yeah, if for the people who may not have missed it, it was pretty quick on the TV. So essentially, uh, you know, he gets knocked down. Ali's standing up, and I forget his name. You just said his name 2 seconds ago. Um, he kicks Ali right in the knee. I mean, it's
Yeah,
clear as day. It's after the play was already dead. It wasn't going for the ball. The ball was I don't even know where. Just kicks him right in the leg. And
yeah,
I'm thinking to myself, well, it's not like he's kicking Jose Martinez, who has
no,
a bad reputation. He's kicking the captain of your team. The MLS should be at least protecting the captains of the teams. Like Ali
Yeah,
Bedoya has a good reputation. He has a lot. If people say, "Oh, well, LeBron James, he gets every foul call," or Joel Embiid. Ali Bedoya is a bit of a star in our league, right? He's a well-known captain. He's a big part of this Union franchise. Why isn't he getting this call? Why isn't he of all people getting this VAR call?
I
It's
mean,
it's that's absolutely unbelievable.
I'll be the one to say it. I think the red card gets given if it's on Santos or Jose Martinez because they have that sort of South American sort of
Also true.
brain where that sort of thing. They will make the biggest deal out of it to not only get the referee's attention but to also get VAR's attention.
That's true.
Whereas I think sort of Bedoya just sort of looked at the referee and went, "Have you seen this?" and then sort of carried on going.
Yeah.
Again, I think he was a red card. It was spotted, and again, you have to. I mean, yeah, there have been a couple of questionable. Well, there have been a couple of things that have perhaps gone in the Union's favour. I think the overturn of the red cards for Jack Elliott and against NYCFC, that was probably
Yeah.
the biggest standout one for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just incredibly frustrating from a
It
Union
is.
perspective to see missed big missed calls without the assistance of video technology. And it's not as if the referee's ignored them either. Like he's acknowledged them, he's sort of given yellow cards for them, and it's sort of like, well, yeah, the game's been stopped. You can go back and look at it. It's
Mhm.
just it's frustrating to see. And then
It's
obviously
very frustrating.
the game ends in a 2-2 draw. I think Nini would take it, and then they go on to the game against Orlando. And obviously, me and Jose were discussing things last week. And sort of obviously, Jim had his press conference yesterday, and I'm sort of blending in his press conference with
Yes.
um, discussing the game. So again, Jim made a number of changes. I believe one, two,
He made 7, I think. One of the big
yeah,
changes was no Bueno on the bench at all,
yeah.
or on
So
the field.
that was a really weird one. So obviously, was asked about that in the press
Okay.
conference, and he said, "Where was Jesus Bueno? Obviously, it's a cup game, and it would have been good to have him in." And Jim said, "Oh, I was debating on having the two holding midfielders sitting in deep, but instead he was told that apparently Jose Martinez, who had come off with a knee knock in the game against LAFC, was good to play in the game, good to like at least be fit for the bench or whatever." So in the end, he decided, which is really weird. I don't. I think he pretty much said that Bueno was in his starting lineup, and
I
then
don't
he just
understand.
took him out of the squad.
I don't
But I mean,
understand it because you know why? Who was on the bench? Alejandro Bedoya. Why is
yeah,
your captain, who played a ton of minutes on Saturday night at 11 p.m.
yeah.
in LA, on your bench?
So
Put
again, I think Jim
put
sort of
Bueno
said
there.
like he was debating on starting Bueno, but once he found out that Martinez was fit, he then just dropped him. But he may be in the squad this weekend. So again, I don't know whether it may have been something to do with the amount of like foreign players you're allowed in your team. Because I think because they had what three, I think they had multiple foreign players in the team. So I don't know if that was something that was perhaps stopping them from coming in. But again, Bueno is currently just sitting in the Union too. That was his chance to actually get some game time this season.
Yeah.
He's now missed out on it. Now, again, we discuss it every week. Jim hates making changes to his main starting 11. He never changes things. Um, so, yeah, I mean, is there right to be concerned about like Bueno and where the development
Yes.
is if, they made these big deals outside these two South American guys last year and, um, you know,
I think there is some concern. So, for one, you brought in Orvik back way one. We never saw him. Never played.
mm,
Then you bring on Davo, plays 15 minutes, and that's about it. You have Bueno now, who played some decent minutes. He was on the field when Glesson scores the goal against the Red Bulls in the playoffs. So he
yeah,
was. I mean, he saw considerable time right there. And then you have Riasco, who's a new kid they brought up to the Union too. I
yeah.
haven't watched a ton of Union 2 matches. From what I've heard, he's been on the bench like maybe once. But again, he's not really an active participant. I'm concerned now. It's been a handful of signings that are not seeing the field at all. in any
Yeah,
stretch of the imagination. I don't understand it. For someone like, say, Stuart Finley, I get it. You have the two best center backs in the league, arguably, right, between Elliott and Glessens. Of course, you're not going to have Finley play. He's really just a
no,
glorified backup. Um, but when you have somebody like Bueno, who showed some decent signs last year, I thought he played fine when his in his brief stints he had. I don't see why you can't have him just come in as a sub for Ali. Come in
yeah,
and rotate, Jose up and move Flock and whatever you got to do, and give him some time, give him a chance. Is he
yeah,
just the heir apparent for Jose Martinez when he leaves? Sure, maybe. If that's the case, then we'll see him plenty of times once Jose
yeah.
gets bought out, whatever that might be.
I th-
I'm concerned though. Yeah,
yeah, I
reasonably
think yeah. I
concerned.
mean, again, it's sort of like Davo. I mean, at least he's playing. I mean, obviously Arvic was playing in the Union Two team and never really played. It was similar to Bueno, so I don't really know what's going on there. It's sort of a weird one where Jim or this team seems to sign holding midfielders and uh, they never seem to work out or never seem to actually get in the team.
They don't win.
Um, obviously, Jose, again, I think Jim, unironically, but speaking about Jose, that was sort of not a mistake that he came in, that they ended up finding him in, but like it was by chance and luck as opposed to, like actually meaning it, where, they just said, okay, we've literally got no one else. Everyone else is injured. Jose, just go in and just play the game. Oh, he can actually hang around with the best of the best. Okay, yeah, we'll keep him in our team. That was sort of how the Jose Martinez adventure here started.
Hmm.
So again, they sort of fell on that and like fell on their face with that one. So I don't know. It's an interesting one. It's maybe something that you maybe have to question in terms of scouting. What do they actually want from a holding midfielder? Is Leon Flack your actual holding midfielder that you want to actually use in there in the future? Because again, I think Bueno was on the bench last week, and instead of
Yeah,
bringing him on to shore things up,
he was on the bench at LA. So that's why I
yeah,
was expecting him to play on Tuesday, and he didn't. And that's the whole. So that's a whole nother conversation. We should probably talk about that too,
so
Dave, because that caused a controversy on Twitter,
yeah,
to say the least. So the controversy, for those who don't know, is should the Union have rested their starters at LAFC and gone full throttle for the Open Cup on Tuesday with their starters? Should they have rested them on the in the Rebels game and went all out for the starters, or should they have rotated some sort of match? Because I mean, statistically speaking, you're not going to win a game with 7 changes. That's just it's proven that it's not going to happen. Fine. For me personally, I wasn't exactly opposed to it. So my argument was, you up until Toronto, you were undefeated, right? You really hadn't played anybody significant. You go to
yeah,
Toronto, you kind of have an unlucky game, whatever. You lose, whatever. You come back home, you draw against Montreal. That should not have happened, but it did.
no,
So
yeah,
you draw against Montreal, whatever. So now you go to Nashville and you go to LAFC. And what you and I talked about a couple weeks ago was the fact that the Union really hadn't been tested yet. Like their their first team really hadn't been tested yet. And I
yeah,
personally wanted to see the best team at Nashville's opening. I wanted to ruin their opener. I wanted to see the best team against LAFC because, to be honest, that's the best team of the West. If you want to see how good you really are, compare yourself against a team that is currently playing really well.
yeah.
And I thought they did fine. I mean, yes, did they blow the leads? Yes, that's another concern for another conversation. But I was happy to see them test themselves. Then when it came to the Open Cup, I would have liked to see a bit of a different roster, sure. But as I said before, I know I'm probably going to get some slack for this. If I had to rank the trophies, to me, the Open Cup is not what I want to win this year. I want to win the
Uh,
MLS Cup.
yeah.
What were your kind of thoughts on the whole argument between whether they should have gone for it or not?
I mean, I think they were sort of in a damned if you do, damned if you don't sort of situation where like
Yeah.
everyone, you know, well, I didn't watch the game. I was at work, so I can't really comment on the performance or anything. But saw people on Twitter, moaning or not being too happy about, oh, this we could have actually had a legitimate chance of winning this competition, the LAFC game, or look, didn't matter too much. But then, if the Union rock up in LA and lose 4-0, 5-0, whatever, and then end up like drawing or still end up going out in the Open Cup with a full strength team. Everyone's sitting there going, "Well, well, that was pointless one. Jim just focused on the league. Do you know what I mean? So I think it was very much a damned if you do, damned if you didn't think. 'Cause
Yep.
there was no guarantee that they were going to win that game anyway with a full stroke lineup.
No.
Um, but again, I think at the start of the season, Jim did. I sort of hinted that he was going to give other players minutes or rotate the team, and that was the game. Obviously, that was the sort of game that they were going to do it with. Fortunately, yeah, they got knocked out, and now players like Stuart Finley, Matt Real, presuming there's no injuries, are going to find minutes hard. I mean,
Hmm.
I think we'll both probably be under the impression that Kyle Wagner and Jose Martinez would leave the team in the summer
Yeah.
and within the next couple of months. So I mean, again, it's going to be a difficult one.
Yeah, I mean the highlight of that game was the fact that Stuart Finley scored. That was awesome.
Yeah,
It was a great little goal. He kind of was in the right spot, the right time. Nice tap it on the corner, which I was very happy for Stuart. And for those who follow me on Twitter directly, you'll saw that a couple of us had a running kind of bet going. If he scored tonight, one of our friends would get a tattoo of another person's initials on them. So that is in the works currently. So I'm excited for that.
yeah,
That was like the highlight of the whole evening was to see that whole little conversation unfold. But besides that, yeah, I mean it's nice for Finley that to at least get his name out there with the goal. Unfortunately, now he's back on the bench and for the foreseeable future.
yeah,
I hope though that he earned at least Jim's trust a bit more, and hopefully we'll see him in a game where Elliot maybe needs a rest, or Jack needs,
yeah,
or Glesson needs a rest, because in the reality is they play together a lot. I mean,
yeah,
a lot. And I think that Stewart has earned the right to at least replace them once in a while. I
yeah.
do. I think
No,
I
I
think he
agree.
did well in the Eastern Conference Final. I thought he did well in his brief stints last year when he was replacing them during the whole CCL run and stuff like that. But
Yeah,
yeah, I think you're right, Dave. They were damned if they did, damned if they didn't. And also, it's like you go to these nationally televised games. Are you putting your B squad out there to get their ass handed to them against Nashville?
yeah,
No, I don't think
no,
so. I don't think you're doing that in LA either. I don't think you're sending out 3,000 miles, having fans travel out there to get your ass handed to you by, Carlos Vela and company. Carlos Vela, who didn't really have a very active night that night. Credit to the Union. Um, to watch their subs get destroyed for an Open Cup. So
yeah,
I don't know. It is what it is. I'm okay with it personally.
yeah. No, I think that's fair. Like, I don't. Again, I think it's um very frustrating. I think it's frustrating. Obviously, to lose a game, you never want to lose a game. But I think
Yeah.
again, Jim made it so clear at the start of the season, like to reach that end goal of winning an MLS Cup or getting to the final of an MLS Cup is the goal this year, and ultimately that's another point on the board. That's another point towards potentially winning the Support Shield and
Yep.
qualifying for the CCL next year. And again, we saw it last year. I think. Could you imagine if they had the CCL and the Open Cup last year? God,
Oh, but
Jim would have made 11 changes for that competition, especially with it being in the midst of the what's it called with the CCL. Jim would have made 11 changes and played Union two players and things like that because again, he put the MLS below the CCL last year, and
yeah.
that's clearly the priority this year to get back to where they aim and want to be. Right? Again, obviously, you can. They believe that clearly their best route into the CCL is through the MLS, not the
Yep.
Open Cup. We've seen that in the team selection. Uh, yeah, I mean, it was sort of a difficult week, and there was always going to be changes. But I think
And then
again, if they'd have rocked up to LAFC and lost 4-0 with like players like Marielle, Matt Freeze and goal and things like that, and all the kids out there, people will be kicking off on Twitter going, "It's an embarrassment. They've literally embarrassed the team. Like they clearly
hmm
know, and they're good enough ways they made 7 changes here. So it's damned if you
exactly.
do, damned if you don't."
Exactly, and that's that's just the reality of it. And listen, last year people gave him shit for putting the team the kids out there before they went to the CCL run. They said, "Oh, you're not taking the MLS seriously. Now you're coming out of the CCL. You're in ninth place. You're not good enough anymore." Blah 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 blah
Yeah,
blah. And what's up, Adam? Thanks for joining us, by the way. Appreciate it.
yeah,
But yeah, it's Jim is very much under a microscope every single week. So I'm trying to give him some slack. I say, you know what, like
yeah,
because it's the reality is let's say you won on Tuesday and you advanced. So at what point is the next match or the next match after that? You're gonna just be dropping MLS points down the road on those matches. So I mean, to your point, yeah, James focused on the Supporter Shield and the MLS Cup. Right now, the Union have 19 points. LAFC has 23. Austin has 20. They're playing great. Then you have the Galaxy and Dallas with 19. So you're within the top five for the Supporter Shield. It's all right there with you. These, if you are going to go for that as one of your goals, then
Yeah,
every point matters in the MLS. Simple as that. You can't drop points,
no,
especially
yeah,
on the road. You at least want to get a road point. So they went out, they did that, they tested themselves. I thought they played well overall on those two games. You know.
yeah. I think obviously going any game I can go after the NFC game, they gave a really good account themselves. They show that they can contend at the top of the MLS when they're at their best.
Yeah.
And I think again, obviously, we were discussing about rotation going into these summer months. I mean, you look at sort of the fixtures that they have to play in these summer months. I mean, obviously, Portland literally next week, and then they got to still travel to Miami in July, Orlando in July, uh, Dallas in August. So, again, those are really hot places and warm places to play, and things such as that. I mean, they've got some midweek games in there as well. They're going to need to rotate their squad at some point, and Jim has to rotate his squad because you're
Yes.
going to burn yourself out if you play the same team for X amount of games. This isn't the Premier League where, it's in England where you're pretty much playing in the same weather conditions, and it's mostly quite not wet. It's mostly cold. It's mostly windy, mostly wet and cold. Uh, Whatever you're playing, 30. I don't know the comparison to Fahrenheit. So they're playing in 30-degree plus Celsius weather for probably most of the games during the summer period. That's just the
Yeah.
reality. That's just the fact of things. You're not going to be able to play your same team every single week, the high
No.
level and the high pressing standard that you want to play. If you don't make changes every so often, if you don't make two or three changes here just to give players a rest, like
Yeah, I
it's just
mean, just even look at like for example, in July, you have a game in Orlando at 7:30 p.m. on Saturday on July 23rd. Orlando in July is going to be pretty fucking hot. It's
yeah,
just going to be reality. And then, you have Miami earlier that month on a Wednesday. It's, 8 p.m. That's also going to be really hot. So, yeah, you're going
yeah,
to have these games where you're going to have hydration breaks, right? You're going to have that. Thankfully for the players, have the hydration breaks. But I like players like Bedoya or even players like Santos who have, soft tissue issues and seem to get hurt a lot. You don't want them to start cramping up and by being overused as much as they are. So I definitely agree with your point. I think there's argument to be said for both sides. Would I like to see them win the Open Cup? Sure.
yeah,
We had three chances. We blew it each time. It sucked. But at the same time, we have bigger mouth.
yeah.
Bigger fish to fry. We saw
Exactly.
the Supporter Shield. We won that. We lost in playoffs. We felt empty. Last year, we went to the Eastern Conference Finals. We lost it because of the COVID. We felt empty. I think it's time for the team to finally reach that pinnacle and not feel that emptiness anymore,
Yeah.
as they have been previously. So, but Dave, speaking of burning hot, scalding temperatures, the Red Bulls are coming to town on Saturday. With that, the Sons of Ben are going to be burning the bull in the parking lot and put lot B at 6. I think 6 p.m. They're doing it. So if you're at Chester and you want to see a huge ass fire, go down and check
Yeah.
out when they light the bull on fire.
Mm.
I've never seen it in person. I've seen it just videos. It sounds awesome.
Yeah.
So if I wasn't sick, I'd probably stroll down there. But
Yeah.
Dave, your thoughts on the Red Bulls, or what did Coach Curtin talk about with the Red Bulls coming to town?
Well, I didn't realise that the Red Bulls have won, I think it's all six of their road games this year,
Oh shit,
which
really?
is ridiculous. I mean, again, they beat Orlando 3-0. They beat DC United 3-0 in the Open Cup. They won against New England. They beat Toronto 4-1 on the road. They beat San Jose 3-1. And, they've had a really solid start to the season.
Yeah.
So I mean, again, you can't really complain about that from their sort of perspective. They won all their road games this year. They're second in the table, literally a point behind the Union at this
Hmm.
point. It's this moment in time. So again, it's going to be a tough game for both. It's going to be a very tough game for both teams. Again, similar goal differences as well. The Union scored 15 goals, conceded 8. The Rebels have scored 16 and conceded 8. And this is sort of the first real weekend where the Union could see themselves slide down the table if they don't get the correct result.
Yep.
So it's going to be a tough game. The Rebels, again, their away record speaks for itself. They're no mugs, no slouches. They're going to cause this team issues, irrespective of, the mentality. They're going to cause the union issues, And again, it was a classic Jim comp. When you sort of heard in sort of the cliches, Jim's got his cliches against each team. But again, obviously came out this week. Although they've lost to Orlando, said they improved and they showed they could go toe to toe against one of the best teams in the MLS. No, LAFC, and he thinks that the team actually has improved.
Mhm.
Again, the Rebels have won the best away records this season. They've won. I think someone said in the press conference they've won all 7 of their away games.
That's nuts.
Although to be fair, 2 of them were in the Open Cup, but still. Shout out to Hartford Athletic. But again, it says this again. They're 2 teams that cancel each other out, and it's always difficult where it comes down just to the odd play is the difference between the 2 teams. And speaking of the odd play, I think we all remember that goal last year in the playoff game, the 123rd minute, when Jaka Glasnes has just decided, screw this, has brought the ball down and just hit it on the half volley, and it somehow ended up in the back of net from about 25 yards out. That is one of the, I think that was up there. I don't know, obviously, Mike, you've been following this team for longer than I. Is that one of the best moments in this team's history?
I mean, to see that live, man, oh my god, it was incredible. It really
Yeah,
was. I think that was one of the top 5 moments for me, maybe top 3 moments for me that I've ever seen, whether it be on television or otherwise.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, you look at these 2 clubs, and what do you expect from them? You expect a game that's going to be down to the wire, probably 2-2, 3-3, or something chaotic, or a 0-0, just you know bludgeoning just back and forth, where you
yeah,
probably wish there was 120 minutes to play. Um, I expect the Red Bulls to come in here. So here's the thing too. Union fans like to joke around saying they're not really our rival because we've been playing so well against them recently. We've been able to beat them consistently. I get that. Eventually they're going to come back and get us. And if there was ever a revenge game, it's this one right here.
yeah.
Because I mean they did. They had a chance to come in here and make a run to the playoffs. And I mean, listen, we pulled out a miracle and sent them home.
Yeah.
That's really what it took, was a miracle. So I'm kind of nervous for Saturday. I really am.
It's gonna be a tough game. I think both teams again. They've conceded less goals than they've played. They've both shown that they can score goals when they need to. I mean, in the games that the Red Bulls have won this year, they've scored like, let me get that again out. It's ridiculous. They've scored like 3 or more goals in like half or like 5 or 6 of the games that they've won on the road. It's genuinely like sort of it's ridiculous the amount of goals that they scored in on the road this year. So they beat DC United 3-0 in the Open Cup. They won 2-1 in Chicago. They won 3-0 in Orlando. And
Wow.
then obviously they scored 4 in Toronto, scored 3 in San Jose. So again, um, they're scoring plenty of goals, and they're going to obviously cause us team issues on
They're
Saturday. Again, yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Sorry. Again, it's just the way this game always goes.
No, and they did to Toronto and San Jose what we thought we were going to do to them: score
Yeah,
multiple goals and light it up against them. They didn't. Thankfully, those teams are not as good defensively as we are, so I'm excited to see what they'll do against our back line. Also, um, n- did Nathan Harriel play against them against the Red Bulls? No, that was Olivier, right? Who played against them, the Red Bulls?
let me check. It might. I
I don't
think
remember
it was
now. At this
Olivier.
point, it was
It
Olivier. It
it
had to be
wasn't.
Olivier.
It wasn't. It was the man, the myth, the legend himself,
It was Nathan.
Elvis Powell.
Oh, Elvis Powell. That's right. He actually played decent in that game. Um, yeah, that's right, Elvis Powell. So they've never seen Harriel before, really,
Yeah,
like at this level he's playing right now. And I think arguably he's going to be a top 5 right back in the MLS by the time maybe next year's over. He's
yeah.
playing that great. He really doesn't make any mistakes. He's just
No.
very good on the ball and everything else in between. They've also never seen Mikael Ua before, and Mikael, I believe, should be back on Saturday off the bench,
He's
which
responded
is
well. He responded well to the training that obviously this is from yesterday.
yeah.
He responded well to training yesterday. There's a possibility that he features at the weekend. They need Jim's sort of really reiterated this team needs him to be fit and in the team, especially with the quick turnaround and another game on Wednesday where they've got a little bit of a Saturday whatever stretch.
Yeah, that's right. They play against one. Shit, I forgot about that. They play
Yeah,
Wednesday against Miami. So if he's not going to be there for the Red Bulls match, fine. I would like to have him there for Miami because honestly, I don't want to. I don't. We lost to Miami at home last year, and it was embarrassing.
yeah,
I don't want to have that happen again. Miami sucks. They shouldn't be. They
yeah,
shouldn't. They should never come here and win a game at
no,
all. And I was at that game too, and it was just awful. Anyway, um, yeah, I want to see Miguel back because he really is that missing piece to this puzzle up front, especially with Carranza. If you have him, Carranza, and the guys that are playing together at a high level, all healthy, you can. This team could really become a contender, which we all think they can be.
yeah,
So his health is important. So I am excited to see what they can do. But at the same time, people expect an ugly game because
yeah,
that's what happens when the Red Bulls come to town. We have an ugly game.
yeah. And yeah, as you said, it's an ugly game. Both teams don't like to give much away, and I don't know if that comes in terms of the style of play that both teams like to use, or yeah, I think. Yeah, obviously, okay. Well, I don't watch much of the Red Bulls, so I'm not going to sit here and comment, but I can't. This is how they play, whatever. But again, like, going off the way that they've played on the road, they're clearly, they're a team that loves to, you know, or take their chances at least. Anyway, I mean, look at the game against Orlando City, which is probably the best representation of everything. They're a team that again plays very similarly to the Union. They like to play off the ball, strike on the counter attack, and whilst creating plenty of chances as well. Again against DC United, literally just a few days ago, they had less possession but more chances. So again, I think they appear to be similar to the way in which the Union play, where it's we'll sit off, we'll let them play against us, but we'll hit them on the counter attack. Perhaps they're better at pressing than the Union, or perhaps they're better at retaining possession because they create plenty of chances. Because the Union sometimes have like 6 or 7 chances and take a couple. Do you know what I mean? It's all
So,
that. So again, I
yeah,
think it's gonna be an interesting game. It's gonna be an interesting game. Interesting to see that the clash and style of battles between the two and how it goes. So I mean, I'm looking forward to it.
I know. I wish I could be there because if there's one game I love going to, it is the Red Bulls matches. They're a hell
Yeah,
of a time, man. They really are, especially because of the burning of the bull. But listen, the reality is the Union, as Jim Curtin has said, are at first. It's very hard to stay up top at first. If you win, you push yourself up 4 points, and you kind of you kind of get back into this more comfortability of having that gap. But if you
yeah,
lose, you're going to go down the pecking order a bit, and that's something that the fans have to kind of get used to. It's going to be a tight race. The Eastern Conference is tight. Montreal has
yeah.
put it together. I'm about to look at the conference now. And Dave, thanks for the note about the sponsors. I almost forgot to
Nice.
read the sponsors today. um, okay, so the table we have here is the Red Bulls are at 18 points. Montreal's at 17. Orlando's at 17. Cincinnati, Dave, has come out of nowhere, and they
I
are in
mean,
fifth
yeah.
fifth place.
I mean, it goes against one of my tweets I put in the early in the season. I thought something I sort of said like there needs to be relegation in the MLS. I think it was their game against who was it? DC United. So there was a red card for DC United in the 80th minute, and there was like 10 minutes of stoppage time as well. So it's sort of like they have to win this game. And Cincinnati gave away a penalty in the 97th minute, and they
Oh
conceded and lost
gosh,
1-0 with the
yeah.
man advantage. And I thought I didn't even know how you're like capable of doing that. Like that just summed up Cincinnati at this point. But I mean, again, I think since that game, they've really, they've taken it upon their stride and fair play to all the former Union guys down there who have, really, um, clearly they've put they stamp their style of what they want. I mean, looking
Hmm.
through it, Alvis Powell's playing consistently. Chris Albright's clearly done a great job because this team last year was struggling to
Yeah.
get beyond 20 odd points. I think looking at how many points they have last year, they quite literally had 20 points last year.
What? And they
So
have 16 already.
they're 4 points already from reaching that sort of thing. So I mean, credit to Cincinnati obviously to actually getting that far and doing as well as they have done so far. Obviously,
I mean, listen, yeah, like I said, so Philly's at 19, but I mean, even Charlotte is eighth seed right now. They're only 6 points away
yeah,
from us. So
yeah,
the Eastern Conference is gonna be tight. it would be foolish to think the Union stay at first place for as long as they have been. It's good for them, but I don't
Yeah,
think they're going to stay in the first place for much longer, especially with Montreal playing pretty damn good right now. So you
yeah,
win this weekend, get some breathing room. You face Miami, which is the second to last team. If you win against the Red Bulls and then beat Miami, that's a 6 point bump that you've now acquired over a matter of 3 or 4 days. So that's
yeah,
huge. So they need to get back to winning. We haven't won since before Toronto. Have to get back in the win column, start finishing these goals, and putting away teams. Because honestly, I'm tired of giving up leads. It's happening
yeah,
way too often with this team. They cannot hold a lead to save their life, and that is the biggest concern for me. Not whether they went for the Open Cup, not some health issues. The fact that they can't hold a lead is a bit alarming.
yeah. I agree with
Yep.
that. Um,
hmm
yeah, I think again, you said it's alarming the fact they can't hold these leads. They need to be more clinical at times with the chances they have, and it, it's just. I mean, again, it's something that goes through spells. Yeah, I mean, again, they need to start being more clinical and taking the chances that come to them, being better, like better decision making when it comes to it. So again, I don't think they've scored more than 2 goals this season. So again, like yeah,
Nope.
they've been stout defensively at times, but again, they've still got that lapse of concentration or that mistake in them, which they had last year, which they sort of do need to cut out at important times. Because there's a big
Yep.
difference to conceding. In fact, the problem is teams are very much the opposite of last year, where the Union fell behind early in games last year and had to claw themselves back, whereas this year they're taking the lead. But I think again they're still having that sort of mistake or lapse of concentration in them at key moments in the game, where it's only a 1 goal difference or whatever, or they're drawing, as opposed to perhaps a lapse of concentration when you're 4-0 up frustrating, but it's not as annoying as when you're in a crucial spot in the game, and we've seen that a couple of times this year.
Yeah, I mean, I can't remember the last time they had a 2 goal lead on anybody.
Yeah.
Was it San Jose? I mean, really, think
It
about it. Charlotte, maybe?
was Charlotte, yeah, which
Charlotte. So they haven't
was
had a
a month ago.
Jesus Christ. Yeah, I mean, it's if you let teams hang around in this league, they're going to score.
Yeah,
And we saw it against Montreal. It wasn't a bad defensive play. It was just good, good offensive play against Montreal, and they snuck one in behind Jake Glesnes, and that's is what it is. I mean, that's what's going to happen. You let them hang around, eventually they're going to score on you, or you put them away, make it 2-0, make it harder for them to score, make them more
yeah,
have to press more often, and you can counter and make it a 3 goal game. It's They just have to do it. They have to
yeah.
learn how to push teams away. But yeah, maybe read the sponsors day before we kind of finally do our score prediction and close off the day. So before we get off to the final outro here, we're gonna do our sponsors. We got to do triple threat bets. You can go to triplethreatwages.com for everything college basketball. I work with them a lot. Great guy, Kyle, who is at Triple Threat Bets. He covers literally everything basketball, NBA, etc. We got Manscaped. Get 20% off plus free shipping with code AATBirds at manscaped.com. You have OddsJam, get the number one software platform for sportsbook bandits. They use an arbitrage calculator and more, so you never lose a bet again. Sign up today at oddsjam.com. We have Statement Games. Statement Games is a fun new way to fantasy sports and entertainment. You can win gift cards and prizes. It's free to sign up at statementgames.com. And then, of course, our newest sponsor, Vinny's Pizza and Restaurant, Allentown, serving up Italian cuisine, including pizza, pasta, burgers, sandwiches, and more, available for pickup or delivery. Order today online at vinnyspizzapa.com. And of course, we have our network stuff, our network gear at aatsportsnetwork.com/shop. You can get everything AAT Sports across the pitch, burning bridges, chips and drip, all that fun stuff. Everything on there, made and designed by Johnny Lecca. Very good
Yeah.
artist. So please check that stuff out. But Dave, shoot off to the end of the show. What is your prediction for scorers, and the final score for the game?
I said last week. Funnily enough, I said that the Union would this game wouldn't end, last week's game wouldn't end in a draw. There was no
hmm
way either the Union will win 1-0 or LAFC will win by a 2 goal margin, or whatever. Game ended in a 2-2 draw.
There you go.
This week, I think I think the Union will get a result. So I'll go 2-1 Union, Carranza and Bedoya for the goals.
Oh, I like it. Little captain action for the goal.
Yeah,
I think you don't have it. I think this is a must win in a weird way. I think that you need to get back on the winning column. I don't think the fans are going to be very happy if you blow up, blow your chance at the Open Cup, and then you come home and let the Red Bulls kind of take one away from you in front of your
Yeah,
fans who you haven't been in front of for several weeks now. So I agree. I think it's gonna be 2-1, 2-0 at the very most. I don't think it'll be more than that. I think 2-1 is the right score here. Maybe second goal in the 75th minute by either Ali or Gazdag or whoever it might be. But I do think if I think Carranza scores again. I think what he
yeah,
played with on Saturday night was phenomenal. I think he's going to come out and score again in front of the fans. So I'm excited to see him play. He's really now must-watch TV at this point because he's
yeah,
just playing that well. And maybe Glesnes kind of sends one off for us, one
yeah,
last hurrah against the Red Bulls before
yeah,
before the game ends. So we'll see. But 2-1, I think maybe Gazdag or Carranza will score.
yeah. Fingers crossed. I mean, good to see. Again, obviously, Gazda continuing his incredible form that he's had this season already. So I'm looking forward to,
Yeah,
just seeing how his influential season continue and seeing how
MVP
he
man.
can continue, potentially continue to potentially build upon what he's already started.
Yep, exactly. Well, I know you're covering the match on Saturday, right? You'll be
Yep,
covering for AT Sports. I know I'll be watching the game as well. And then Wednesday they face off against Miami. So next week we'll come back and talk about those two matches again next Friday
yep.
night. I will be on that match coverage for Wednesday. Wednesday night I think 7:30 against the beloved Inter Miami, who I really can't stand them. I don't know why. I don't like Miami, but we'll have all your coverage here for you.
Yeah.
But Dave, any final thoughts?
No, this is going to be a tough game this weekend. Unfortunately, I won't be able to watch the game on Wednesday, so we'll be looking towards Mike for his coverage of things. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting game.
Yes, exactly. And I suppose, Dave, no time better than now. Just a quick announcement. It'll be announced officially soon enough, later in the next couple weeks. But fortunately, my time with AAT Sports is coming to an end within the near future. That includes AAT Sports with the Across the Pitch show, union coverage, etc. For personal reasons, which I'll lay out again in a more well thought out time once that time does officially come. So I want to let everybody know ahead of time. My final show will be in a couple weeks, probably, and I'll explain it all out. But if you know anybody who's looking to cover the union, trust me, Dave's a great person to work with. I promise you, he doesn't bite, and he'd be happy to have anybody on
Yeah,
board. I know our buddy Jose might be one lined up for us to join us. So
yeah,
just wanted to give an early announcement. But until then, I'm here covering the games. Saturday, Red Bulls come to town. Fuck New
yeah.
York Red Bulls. Go Union.
Go Union, do.